Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to my YouTube channel, Soldier Speaks English. And today I've got a special guest with me, Sangar Paikar. And Sangar Paikar, Khosh Amdeed, Pakhair Ragle. I would first of all ask you to introduce yourself to my audience, please.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is, as you mentioned, Sangar Paikar. I am the host of the Afghan Eye podcast. And together with my colleague Ahmed Walid Kakar, we basically do analysis and commentary, anything related to Afghanistan and the region. And aside from that, yes, I do some consultancy and advice work for nonprofits and small businesses. I do also some coaching, but my main interest is the geopolitics of the region.
Thank you for introducing yourself, Sangar Pakar. I've been a guest on your space, and that was very well received in Pakistan and in South Asia as well. And the perspective is South Asian. And the topic which we will be discussing today is regime change in Afghanistan. Now, what the regime change concept is, that the Pakistani generals, they want to conduct a regime change in Afghanistan, and the Pakistani super king, who is the Field Marshal Asim Munir, it is his brainchild, and he's been trying to desperately sell it in Washington, D.C. He has promised a regime change in Afghanistan. So far, he has been unable to deliver upon his promises, and my information based on the insider sources and the power corridors of Washington, D.C. tells me that, well, since he's unable to deliver, and he had promised President Trump that he will deliver the Bagram Air Base. So now the Americans believe that, well, the Afghans are not going to give it or hand it over to them, and the Pakistanis do not have the capacity or the capability to fulfill the promises. So they are not openly supporting Asim Munir's plan. Nonetheless, it is not stopping Asim Munir to carry out and conduct, clandestine activities and blame Afghanistan for security failures in Pakistan. And Asim Munir wants a regime change in Afghanistan, and they are very desperate because they have always considered Afghanistan to be a strategic depth, which has turned out to be a strategic trap now, actually. But my question to you, Sangar, is that firstly and foremost, please address this issue. Is Pakistan capable enough to carry out a regime change in Afghanistan at the moment?
Thank you. I think that's a very interesting question because as we've observed in the 2 decades of military occupation by United States and their allies, is that due to the fact that Afghanistan has so many different ethnic groups, and historically Afghanistan has never had a centralized government, the society is very strong, but the state has always been very weak. And the fact that the society is strong is evident from the way insurgent groups have always managed to use the masses in rural countryside in Afghanistan to conduct an insurgency very successfully, first during the Soviet occupation and later during the US occupation. So what we need to identify is which entity, which faction in Afghanistan has the capability to dominate the whole country and secure it. If there is no advanced and developed state that can run a country like Afghanistan, then which factions are actually capable of doing that? The reality is that the Taliban have proven to be the only faction who can govern the whole country. And this is not because they are very popular or that the people in Afghanistan all think that the Taliban are great and fantastic. That's certainly not the case. It's the cohesion within the movement of the Taliban and their appeal to certain values that are, to a certain extent, acceptable to vast majority of the people in Afghanistan. So, for example, if we compare the Taliban to the previous government in Afghanistan during the Soviet occupation, during the US occupation, they heavily relied on people who were Um, there is some echo. Okay.
No, that's fine. Please,
No,
you
no,
can
okay,
carry on.
sorry. So they heavily relied on people who are involved in all kinds of crime, persecution of people, harassment of civilians. And those people did not receive the kind of support or approval of the masses like the Taliban do right now. Because, may I remind you, everyone is armed in Afghanistan. In every household, people have guns.
Like
But still,
America, like America, like America.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and still you see that there is no fighting at the moment, and there is no war in Afghanistan. That doesn't mean that everyone approves the Taliban, but they think that there is no better alternative. Now, if the Taliban manage to govern the country as they have done in the last 4 years, and they have managed to provide security, some basic level of governance, development projects like roads, dams, etc., it means that out of all uh, factions, they are the most capable, considering all the challenges in Afghanistan. Now, if Asim Munir wants to overthrow this government and replace it with another group, the question is who? Who does he have in mind? Does Asim Munir believe that he can militarily occupy Afghanistan? We've seen in the last 45 years that there were two foreign occupations by superpowers and they were not successful. Why would a occupation by Pakistan be successful? That doesn't make any sense. Does Asim Munir believe that Americans are going to send troops and others to help him occupy Afghanistan? We've seen that the West is sick and tired of military occupation, so they're not going to do that. Yeah. It leaves us with one option. He must have a specific faction in mind that is capable enough to dominate the country and rule it. And to be honest, we don't know anyone who has that kind of capability in Afghanistan. No group has that kind of manpower, support base, infrastructure that can do that. So this is why I think a regime change is out of the question. It's impractical and impossible. So I would say the idea of a regime change is maybe something that sounds interesting in theory, but in practice, it's not possible. And we've seen that Afghanistan is a very difficult country to govern. It has many challenges. And for an outsider, it's even more difficult to govern. So that's why I think that he may want to offer this as a solution to the Americans, but even the Americans are not buying it.
Sangar, traditionally, the Haqqanis have been seen as a proxy for Pakistan or as an ally of Pakistan, but we have not seen the Haqqanis very forthcoming this time around. What has changed?
I would say that the Haqqanis, I'm not very, how do you say, I'm not in favor of categorizing groups within the Taliban as they are categorized often by outsiders, is because reality is that inside the Taliban movement, there are a lot of overlapping interests and allegiances between different leaders due to their historic background, etc. So we cannot categorize Haqqanis as a separate group. If we are more specific about Sirajuddin Haqqani, the Minister of Interior, his family or his father, yes, they were very close with the Pakistanis, and they have been very close with the Pakistanis. But what we need to identify is that all human organizations in general, all human organizations, the more they grow and the more they evolve, they become independent and they focus on their own agenda and interest. And they cannot always be used by outsiders as a proxy, especially when they gain more power and influence. With regards to the Haqqanis, is that Jalaluddin Haqqani, the father of Sirajuddin Haqqani, he has always been a strong figure, a community figure in eastern Afghanistan. And his cooperation with Pakistan was based due to convergence of interests of the Pakistani authorities and his struggle to, overthrow the communist government in Afghanistan. But it doesn't mean that he was entirely subservient to the Pakistanis. And this is why now that his son is his successor and a very significant figure within the Taliban movement, arguably the second most powerful figure within the Taliban movement, they have their own agenda. They have their own power base. They have their own country now. They run their own state. So obviously, they are serving their own interest when they assume a posture against Pakistan that can be considered hostile. But in my opinion, even right now, not just the Haqqanis, but the leader in Kandahar and the other senior figures, they have always maintained that the solution with Pakistan is dialogue, because they are realistic in the sense that they know that a war is something that Afghanistan simply cannot afford. A war costs money. Afghanistan doesn't have the resources and the money to wage another war with anybody. And similarly, Pakistan also doesn't have the money to wage a war. They want America to finance this war. So if we look back at this whole situation, neither Afghanistan, whether it's the Haqqanis or the Kandaharis or whatever group you identify, neither the people in Pakistan benefit from a war. So the fact that they have not been forthcoming or agreeing with the demands or supporting the demands of the Pakistani military is because it is not in the interest of people of Afghanistan and Pakistan. And that's why they are not cooperating in a sense with the demands of the military establishment in Pakistan.
Sangar, what are the options for Afghanistan if Pakistan does, carry on the same line? And because Pakistan is being ruled by a military establishment which is under the complete control of one man who's called to be psychotic by Zalmai Khalilzad and so many other people, So this mad king, if he continues on the same path, what options does Afghanistan has to respond in Pakistan?
Let's just assume that Asim Munir does not get what he wants from the Americans because they will not finance his adventure in Afghanistan. And he carries on this antagonism and it eventually spills over into a full-fledged war. The Pakistani military is very capable and powerful. It's capable of conducting many airstrikes and bombing Afghanistan, the cities, the major military bases and everything. And that will eventually probably lead to many casualties in Afghanistan. However, the Taliban as a movement, you have a military background, you should know this better than I do. They have a very large base of fighters who have been experiencing fighting as guerrilla warfare in the terrain that is very similar to Pakistan. And they have always infiltrated back and forth across the Durand line on both directions. And most of these people, they are familiar with Pakistan. They lived in Pakistan. They speak Urdu. They know their way around in that country. So what I expect is that if in case of a war, if it happens, there will be a lot of fighting going on sporadically all over Afghanistan and Pakistan for a long time. And that will cost eventually a lot of people, that there a lot of human lives will be lost. But I don't think that they will be capable of overthrowing the Taliban regime or replacing it because, as discussed earlier, there is no alternative. So this is going to be a very costly war for both countries. It will cost a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. And at the end of the day, there won't be any winners because we can right now predict that the Pakistani military will not achieve any goals. Maybe the one of the objectives that they may achieve by starting a war with Afghanistan is to drive the attention of the masses in Pakistan away from the dysfunctions of the state, the fact that The economy is very in very bad shape in Pakistan. The fact that elections have been rigged, and the fact that investors, international investors, are departing from Pakistan, all these factors, they are causing problems internally in Pakistan, and maybe the military can be, how would you say that? Maybe the military will be able to drive the attention of the masses away from all those problems by creating an enemy, a unified enemy for all people in Pakistan, which is Afghanistan and the Taliban. But that's not a lasting solution. This is going to be only a solution for a while, and after a while, the masses, even in Pakistan, they will realize that this is an endless adventure that will only cost Pakistan more resources, money, and human lives.
Sangar, coming to the great power rivalry in our region, China and the US are practically at war. The US stayed for almost 2 decades in Afghanistan. They could not succeed. It was the entire US was leading the entire Western force. There was ISAF, International Security Assistance Force, which was a combination of NATO forces, right? So they were there. They could not succeed. Of course, was there any Chinese support to the Afghan resistance during the 20 years of war against the US-led Western camp in Afghanistan?
If there was any support, I'm not aware of it. What I do know is that the Taliban did use certain military strategies that originate in the guerrilla war that was waged by Mao Zedong. So before Mao Zedong took over, he waged a long military campaign in the countryside in China against Chiang Kai-shek, and that lasted years. And that strategy is documented in books. So military analysts, when they observe how the Taliban operated in Afghanistan in the last 2 decades, they see similarities between how the Taliban were waging the war and how Mao Zedong did that before taking over China. So that's the only similarity I see, but I don't think that the Chinese played any role in that. They probably read a book, or the Taliban, they also read books other than religious books. So that's all I know. More than that, of any actual evidence of military or material support, I haven't seen any evidence of that.
Of course, that is the beauty of any clandestine support that during the Afghan Jihad, once the ISI and the CIA were, supporting the Afghan Mujahideen, they bought Russian weapons made in Israel. AK-47s were made in Israel. And General Ziaullah famously said in Charlie Wilson's war that remove the Star of David from the boxes and I don't care where it's coming from. So obviously there was no linkage that US is providing this weapons and ammunition, because the AK-47s are Russian made. So definitely you will never find any linkage, and it'll come through third or fourth parties. So that will remain a speculative assertion. But there is no doubt that Afghanistan is the very backyard of China and Russia as well in that instant. And Russia and China are in a security cooperation, and they are fighting the US-led West. So with Bagram Air Base at the center of the controversy, which was built by the Russian and developed by the Americans, and President Trump very fondly talking about it once he was here in the UK, that, well, I'm going to go, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. I'm sure that was his favorite field marshal, who's not favorite anymore. He was the one who was telling him that I'm going to get you. And now the Washington insider says that he cannot deliver upon his promises, so he's not taken very seriously anymore. And otherwise, he does not have the money, as you rightly pointed out, to fill the coffers in Washington DC or buy weapons from them. It's a business at the end of the day for them. Indians have got the money, so they've got their thing sorted out with the Washington DC. But that's a separate topic. Coming back to Afghanistan, coming back to the geostrategic position of Afghanistan, which is critically important for Russia, for China, and for America. And then the elephant in the room is the rare earth elements, REE, of Afghanistan, the iron ore which the Indians want, and there are so many mineral wealth in Afghanistan, which only the Chinese have got the capability to extract and process right now. So, how do you see the current Afghanistan under the Taliban regime balancing its international relations with the global powers?
When I'm in Kabul, when I talk to people in different sectors, whether they're academics or people who are currently in government, what I observed is that they are not very keen on the Chinese overtures because they see China as a neighboring country that is very capable, but China has not done anything significant that could win over the Taliban's trust. And this is why they are very reluctant in doing much with the Chinese. They expect international recognition, whether it's from China or Russia. They will expect investment from those countries. They expect China and Russia to invest in Afghan infrastructure. The Taliban expect that China offers them like so that they can buy weapons, whether it's airplanes, air defense systems, other kinds of advanced weapons that Afghanistan needs to protect its national interests. Because, as you know, the Afghan airspace is violated almost on daily basis by U.S. Spy drones, etc. Those are matters of concern, and Afghanistan is in a very precarious situation where all these neighboring countries who have the capabilities, they do not sell any of those weapons to Afghanistan. So this is why the Taliban are also not keen on any kind of overture from the Chinese, because they say, okay, we need to protect ourselves, and you have the means to offer us, defense capabilities, but you're not offering us anything. So why should we give you the keys to our other resources that you need and depend on? And as you mentioned, the future, the economy of the world moves towards a stage where those rare earth minerals will become even more valuable. And Afghanistan has its vast reserves, but at the same time, the current government in Afghanistan expects something in return. And that is that they're recognized and that they can do business with everyone. And especially, they need to be able to purchase advanced weaponry so that they can protect themselves. You see, if Pakistan can conduct an airstrike in Afghanistan so easily and get away with it, it's because Afghanistan doesn't have any air defense systems. But Afghanistan does have rare earth minerals. So anybody who is interested in investing in Afghanistan, they should also sell Afghanistan defense capabilities. But that's not what China is doing. And neither is Russia doing that.
Very interesting point of view, because obviously China has got security and strategic partnership with Pakistan, and they are funding the Pakistani. They're not funding, but they are providing 85% of the Pakistani defense equipment comes from China. So why would China support Afghanistan? And in this case, who do you think to be a natural ally of the Afghans under the circumstances?
In Kurdish, there is a statement, there is an expression, they say, only the mountains. They say that the Kurds only have as an ally the mountains. And similarly, if we observe the situation in Afghanistan, it's very similar. Only the mountains. Afghanistan doesn't have any natural allies in the region. There are no countries that are willing to, really go all the way with Afghanistan. The one country that should do that, and the one country that actually must do that, is Pakistan. But sadly, the people in power in Pakistan, they have other ideas. But I would say, if we look at the map in the region, if we look historically, culturally, Afghanistan and Pakistan are bound to each other for eternity. And though these two nations should be each other's biggest allies. But sadly, the way the world works is they are not. And this is why we are now in this current conflict. And yeah.
Yes, Sagar, but Imran Khan is the most popular leader of Pakistan, and almost 80 to 90% people of Pakistan have voted for Imran Khan, and he's been thrown in jail by the military of Pakistan. And he constantly talks about Afghanistan, in support of Afghanistan, in support of brotherly relations with Afghanistan. He understands the divided tribe issue between Afghanistan and Pakistan. He understands that there's the same nation bounded by blood and cultural ties. So it is simply impossible to take, make enemy out of Afghanistan, and he does realize it. And it's only a matter of time he does come out from jail, and takes over the reins. So there is hope, don't you think, in the shape of Imran Khan for Afghanistan and for the wider region?
Imran Khan, as a leader, he has the support of the masses in Pakistan, and he is behind bars. But what I'm more interested in is learning what percentage of the young Pakistanis really believe that his vision of a unified, community of Afghans and Pakistanis is our, in our own interest, in our common interest. You see, when I was traveling to Central Asia earlier this year, I was in Central Asia, I was in Uzbekistan, I spoke to many Uzbeks, and we traveled there and met a lot of people. I've been to Central Asia during the communist era as a child. And now I see Central Asia there, growing, developing, and they're becoming very prosperous. And I see so much potential in Central Asia. I live currently in Europe, and Europe has a history of two world wars. France, Germany, UK, these countries, they collectively killed hundreds of millions of people here on the mainland Europe. But now they're not at war with each other. They are in a union, and they have created this union based on a particular vision. Now, the question arises, why can't we in our part of the world have a similar vision? Based on our common heritage, common history, common values, and geographic proximity to one another. Those matters need to be addressed not just by a single leader like Imran Khan, but by the youth in Pakistan and Afghanistan and Central Asia. Like today we have Asim Munir. One day he's going to die. Okay, he will perish like many other people. But the next generation of Afghans and Pakistanis who will take over, they need to have this common vision that we as people, we need to stop being pawns of outsiders and constantly at each other's throat, but focus on what is in common interest of all of us. How can we serve the common interest of all of us so that we have a prosperous life? Those rare earth minerals, they're not just in Afghanistan, they're also in Pakistan. They're also in Central Asia. We have the potential to dominate the economy and industry of the whole world in future if we get over these petty conflicts and these petty leaders who want to be dictators and tyrants and turn people against each other.
Sangar, thank you so very much with this message of hope and with this, I would say, roadmap for future. I mean, peace is the logical way forward, and peace has got great dividends if you pursue that path for the entire region. But it does not suit the interest of the military-industrial complex, which is actually ruling the country. It does not suit the interest of the end-time fascist and the disaster capitalist, which we have to beat as people, and we have to think about our own future. And that is the only way forward. Peace is the logical way forward. With this message of hope, thank you. And we are hoping to see you very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, please like and subscribe to this channel, Soldier Speaks English. And we'll be broadcasting this on multi platforms, wheresoever you are. Follow us. And Sangar, where could you be found on social media? If you could please let the audience know.
We're on YouTube, on X. You can find us on YouTube and on X, the Afghan Eye. And my own handle is Paikar, just like my last name is spelled.
Thank you so very much, Sangar. Take care of yourself. Khudafaz, Khudai Payaman.
Assalamu alaikum.